Sorry, I was just sitting here fiddling with things, and I just noticed that it had gone 7. First of all, thank you so much to Ruby and Axel and Des for joining me on the live today to talk about their experience of the class. Just remember, if you'd like to share your thoughts on the class, we have a weekly Wednesday live for PAScribers sort of wanting to share their experience about particular classes. Gingy is going to do a sort of sheet. We're slowly going to get through all the classes, and then once she's done the sheet, we can drop your names in and then tally people up and get 3 people together to talk about the same class that they've done. Right. So this is the last calligraphy and meditation class before the weekend course. And the weekend course is 2 Sundays. So it's one Sunday and then the following Sunday. And you would have had to have taken one of the calligraphy and meditation classes in order to attend that course. It's a little bit more complicated. It's a little bit more involved, and it's specifically going to look at how you use the techniques that we learn in the calligraphy and meditation classes to apply it to your calligraphic work. If you don't have a calligraphic script, I would suggest you look at one of the ones that we have on Teachable, be it italic or textualis or copperplate. Maybe italic or textualis might be easier to sort of crack into before the class, which is fairly soon. So without further ado, let's get started. So so I know it's a little bit of a stressful week for a lot of us. I just had my vaccine on Thursday, and I'm still struggling a little bit. So I'm actually really excited to do this particular calligraphy and meditation class. The stuff that's happening in India and Brazil is really, really heartbreaking. And of course, what's happening with Palestine and Israel it's insane, because we're facing this pandemic, and we should be working together. So that's had me really quite upset the last couple of days. So I've been working on a meditation that that in the practice of the meditation at home, I found it to be really, really helpful. So we'll go through that today. So let's get started. Let's share the screen. So if we don't need you to put where you're from in the chat, just be present with the writing. We'll take a break. I'll try and stop a little bit earlier so that you have time to put stuff into the chat if you want, and then we'll have a Q&A after. All right. So I've already taken my sheets out of my pad and I've put it underneath, on top of 4 sheets of white paper. I have all these clipboards. These clipboards always fall apart. I have like 10 of them, and they're all in the same state of degradation. And I was thinking of a better way to work rather than having, working in a pad. So remember I said, one of the problems with working in a pad is it can dramatically affect the way that you write, because it's on the page. I thought it was on the screen. Right. It can dramatically affect the way you work because your hand is raised at the edge. So just be a little bit conscious of how you're working and where the paper is. You're probably going to use about 5 of these sheets. So I would just tear 5 of them out rather than having to tear them out as you go along. I had a couple questions about tools. So somebody sent a question about pencils. This is so funny. This is a big 0.7 mil. I normally use a pencil. There goes my sharpener. I normally use a Pentel for my work, 0.3, which is dramatically thinner. I don't suggest you use mechanical pencils because learning to control the tip on a regular pencil is a big part of the practice. If you want to use these for correction, then that's great. You know, I have some really expensive mechanical pencils, but I was in Trinidad about 7 years ago, and I said to Mummy, oh, I didn't have a pencil handy. I said to Mummy, oh, do you have a pencil? And she gave me this crappy little pencil. And I use it as often as I can because Mummy gave it to me. So it's funny how these things, you sort of ascribe value to really cheap things. Right. So notes, we are practicing the lines. So my pad is a 6mm lined pad. So the interlinear space is 6mm. We are going to start working across 3 spaces. So from here to here, that's roughly 18, that is 18mm or roughly 3/4 of an inch. So if your pad is a little bit bigger than that, you might find that you need to be a little bit more conscious of how you're going to approach the writing. I'm using a 2B pencil. I have no idea where I got this pencil from. I've actually tried to look online for this N1610 because it's actually a really nice 2B pencil. I love the fact that it's so plain. So remember, we work in groups of 5 lines. Don't do more than 5 at a time. You might also want to do 5 lines and put the pencil down completely so that it tells your brain that you are taking a break to deal with the corrections, so that you're not sort of reinforcing mistakes. Remember, after the 5th line, it will always be a problem. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm not going to teach you how to hold the tool. This is entirely a reflective practice. It's about your approach to the writing. I will talk a little bit about it after the meditation, but let's get into the writing. So we're going to do 5 vertical lines. So remember to mark off, going across 3 spaces. All right, so let's correct this. So it doesn't matter what you've done. Really, it doesn't. You know, this class it's not like a calligraphy class in that, you know, it's really centered around really accurate letter forms. This class is about a meditative practice, but also building accuracy. So in order to build that kind of accuracy, you have to know what you're looking at. Come on. So let's look at what we've done. So I can see from here that there is a little wiggle here. I can also see that this line is not straight. This is a little bit straighter, but it's still a little bit wiggly. There's a little wiggle at the top there. There's a little bulge in the side here, so a little curve. You have a wiggle and a little wiggle and a wiggle and a big wiggle and a bend there and a bend there and a sort of bulge here. I missed the line here, but I managed to stay on the line for the 5 of them, and I've gone over there and there. So making little notes to tell myself, you know, there's some little issues here. Pick an issue. What are you going to correct first? Is it going to be the verticality? Is it going to be the fact that I'm not quite there on those lines? So one of the things I do is I use these 3 dots. You've probably never really seen me use them here. I either use 3 dots, or if I'm writing text, I use 3 little dashes or I do 3 straight dashes. And if I'm doing copper plate script, I actually do them at 55. So I do this. And this indicates to me that this is something separate that I'm working on. So we have 3 lines, 5 lines. So we're going to go back and we're going to repeat this exercise with a little bit more intention. So I know I'm not ready to do the writing. And I know that I need to correct some of the issues with the writing. For me, the most important thing here isn't the verticality. It's making sure that the lines sit between the baseline and that cap height. So I'm making a conscious decision in my mind to work on the accuracy of the line height. So there's something else that I can feel that's bothering me as I'm writing, and that is, as you've noticed, I've gone from a thicker line to a thinner line, but that's because I've rotated So do you see how my pencil is a little bit flatter here? I've rotated from this flat bit to that point. And so the problem with that is I can't gauge what's happening at the leading edge of that point. So this is a little bit more than we've covered in the previous classes, but this is where we're really starting to pay attention to the tools. What is the tool doing? What is the tool capable of doing? And on which edge is it going to sit? So let's do 5 more strokes. I'm going to flatten that edge a little bit. I don't want to use some sandpaper because it'll be too flat. Much better. I'm not too happy with the verticality of the lines, but I am really happy with the fact that I'm much more conscious of staying between these 2 lines. So let's break that down a little bit. Why did that happen? So I know for me that it took me a little while to sort of work out what was happening with the tip of the pencil. I made a decision to flatten it off a little bit more so I had more control over the edge on that tip. And then when I went to the writing, the first thing I thought was, before I put the pencil on the page, where am I going to start? I put the pencil down, I waited, I made the downstroke, and as I was approaching the baseline, when I got to a third from the baseline, I started to think, you need to slow down so that you actually touch the line rather than overshoot the line. Then when I got back up to the top, as I was moving from the baseline, I was asking myself, where are you going to put the pencil? So I was going through the same, repeating the same method. And that's really important, that you're being conscious of what you're going to do. The thing that really helped me here was slowing down. So I know that by slowing down, it really sort of helped me to, it gave me the time to do the things that I wanted to do. So we're going to do 3 more sets of these, of this 5-line group. So remember, skip 2 lines, mark off. Now, the verticality is better in the last 3 because I'm settling into the exercise. So if you haven't done this exercise before, or if you've had a rough day, or if you're struggling a little bit energetically or mentally or emotionally, you'll find that the lines aren't the easiest things to get straight. There's a ton of psychological stuff around straight lines and, you know, how we're working with them. And, you know, as you're pulling towards yourself, if you're struggling with things like self-confidence, you'll actually feel like pushing away from yourself. So pulling lines towards you, pulling things in towards you when you're struggling with self-confidence can also be a real stumbling block if you find that you're really struggling with the lines. There are ways to get your mind to not fixate on the psychological, emotional, and physical issues. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if you are having a problem emotionally, psychologically, physically, what I would suggest you do is make a little note of it. That's why we have all this space here, all the space between the lines. You know, lots of people practice and they'll practice in the next line here. I actually sometimes leave 3 line space because depending on, you know, how much correction I feel I'm going to write. If you're going to use this exercise as a meditative practice, leave the same line height space, because you'll find that you're going to start to need to make notes on your emotional state, your psychological state, your physical state, so that you're actually using the practice in a much more deeper, more meaningful way. Brilliant. So I don't know if you've noticed that I've completely slowed down. And that's dramatically changed the way the lines are working. So I'm feeling a little bit happy about that. We're going to do 1 more set of these lines. I'll give you a couple of minutes. I'll give you a couple of seconds to just make some notes, to do some pointers, to double check what's happening with the line. How's the line feeling? What might be nice is for you to actually write a little note to say to yourself, how did you feel you approached those lines? And the next set that we're going to do, I really want you to slow down with me. Really take your time at the writing of the line. I'm just going to do 5 more for myself. So the reason I did 5 more was because I got to here and I did a really nice line, and then I got to here and I was on the edge of this little lip here and my hand started to wobble across it, and I thought, oh, I just want to do 5 more lines for myself, just to sort of, you know, just to relax into that. Okay, so you're holding the pencil, yeah? Let's take the pencil up, stop. Those of you who haven't done this before, let's take the pencil out of the writing hand with the non-writing hand. So we're engaging the non-writing hand. Put the pencil down and let's sit back and get comfortable. So we're going to do this guided meditation. So I want you to get as comfortable as you can get where you're sitting. Even if you have to move to somewhere that's a little bit more comfortable, make sure that you can sit comfortably without having to move because you're uncomfortable, or because your leg's hurting or your back's hurting, you have to shift around a little bit. Sort of settle into your chair. If you've chosen to sit upright like I am, I sit on a piano stool. I don't have a back on my piano stool. If you've chosen to sit upright like I am, make sure your feet aren't crossed at your ankles or at your knees. You might want to put your hands either on the table. So I'm just going to rest my hands, palms up on the table, or I'm going to rest them on my legs. And I just want you to try and relax. I'm not asking you to relax. The meditation will help you to relax. I just want you to get to the point where you're open to the meditation. So close your eyes. I can still sense that quite a few of you are really fidgety. Just sort of settle into your chair, into your seat. Just snuggle down into it. If you can't sit upright for long periods, then by all means lean forward, slouch a little bit. Just make sure that you're comfortable. And close your eyes. And I want you to take a breath through your nostrils and exhale through the mouth. Inhale, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Take a nice deep breath. As you exhale, imagine yourself in a forest. It doesn't matter the kind of forest you're in. It could be a beautiful tropical rainforest with huge buttressed root trees and palms in the forest. It could be a coniferous forest. Just be comfortable in the forest. It could be a forest of your own making, made up of trees that you like. It doesn't even matter if the trees would never ever be in the same kind of forest. Lovely, beautiful. I can sense some of you turning around, looking at the forest. That's great that you're already in the forest and settling in. Take a nice deep breath and smell the sort of damp earth in the forest. So beautiful. Really does carry you away. It does take you to somewhere else. Take another deep breath. Beautiful. And through your eyes, even though your eyes aren't fully opened, you can just see the light pouring through the leaves in this sort of dappled pattern as the wind blows through the leaves in the forest. And I want you to pick a tree in the forest, any tree. It could be a big tree, it could be a small tree. Just go up to the tree, and you might even want to do this physically with your hands. Pick the tree, walk up to the tree, look up to the crown of the tree. And don't forget your eyes are still closed. Crane your neck back as though you're really looking up. Look up to the top of the tree. Admire the tree for what it is, its beauty, its majesty, its connection to nature. And look down to the trunk of the tree, to just in front of you. And I want you to physically raise your hands in front of you. Just rest it gently on the bark of the tree. And feel the bark underneath your fingers. Feel it pressing against your palms. You might want your hands to be lateral so that they're curving around the trunk of the tree, away from you, almost as though you're going to give the tree a hug. But you really just want your palms resting on the bark. And just gently rub the bark a little bit. Feel the bark underneath your hands. Now I want you to smile. Take a nice deep breath and smile. And smell the forest. Feel the tree. And you can feel the tree connecting with you. And your smiling really helps to release tension and frustration and stress. Take a nice deep breath again. Exhale. And inhale. And exhale. And I want you to nod 3 times to the tree. Just to say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to release some of my energy. And step back away from the tree. And I want you to, normally we would turn to the right. I want you to turn to the left. So we looked at part of this exercise before where we were going back in time. Don't forget, you are not alone in the forest. Everyone else on this class is in the forest with you. But from your perspective, they might be trees. And from their perspective, you might be a tree. So you might have just touched one of the participants, just sort of sharing your energy with them and supporting each other. So as you turn to the left, let's walk down the path. You can see the path is much narrower than the path to the right, but it's still a path. We're going to walk down this path. And just down the path, you can see a clearing. Probably a clearing that you've never noticed before. And we're just walking and the path is winding just a little bit. So the clearing disappears and it reappears. It's really important that you understand that the clearing is not moving. You are the one that's moving. So there's no need to be afraid. You're not going to get lost in the forest. I see some of you already in the clearing. And the rest of you are following. Very good. Lovely. So take your time. Let's get into the clearing. And the clearing has a big stone in the middle with a tree, beautiful tree and flower on it, a small tree. And around the clearing, there are all these stones, and the stones are actually laid out for you. And all you have to do is pick a stone and just sit down with your back against the stone and lean back, and the stone will almost recline under you. It's there to support you. Take a nice deep breath, settle down onto the floor, feel the earth beneath your thighs, the back of your knees, your calves. Dig your heels into the earth a little bit and just sort of sink into the earth. I can feel some of you smiling because you're really feeling the earth accepting you. Let your energy drain out into the earth. Let all that frustration and stress and tension just drain out into the earth. And if a thought comes into your head while you're doing this, just ask the thought to give you 2 hours. And it'll go away, and any other thoughts that come into your head, just ask them to give you 2 hours, and they'll eventually come back. Lovely. Some of you are almost on the verge of sleeping. And take a nice deep breath. And I want you to look up. So the rock's supporting your head. So, don't sort of feel you're going to fall back and fall out of your chair. Just look up. You might just want to tilt your head back just a little bit and look up with your eyes. And look up into the sky. And that clearing is really big. So you can see right up into the sky. And even though it's daylight, you can see stars. For me, the thing that I love when I look up into the sky, which I used to love as a child, was I could see the Milky Way. So you should be able to see the Milky Way. Look at that beautiful stretch of density of stars across the sky, that band of denser cluster. And as you look up at the Milky Way, you sort of feel yourself being pulled into it. Now, don't be afraid. We're not going to astral travel. We're not doing any of that. We're just going to allow the energy to draw us up. We're staying in our bodies, obviously, but feel yourself move up and away into the star clusters. You could feel the stars around you humming. Scientists have found that we've recorded the sun humming. Stars hum, and so the stars are humming, and the interstellar gas in space, as it's blowing through space, it also creates a hum. So not only can we hear the hum, we can feel the hum humming through us, vibrating through our bodies. Feel the hum. Know that you are part of this hum. You are not a part of it. You are part of it. You are encompassed by it, and it encompasses you. It saturates you. Feel it allowing your body to vibrate and to hum. The most beautiful thing about this isn't that you are connected to the universe. It's that you are connected to the universe and to everyone in the class doing this meditation. And as you start connecting together, your collective connection will issue out of that bubble that we've created, that meditative bubble that we're in. And it will issue out to the rest of all living things on the planet. You can feel the hum of the water in the oceans. You can feel the hum of people's hearts. You can feel the hum of everyone and everything. You can feel the hum of the entire universe, all in that hum, humming through you. Now take a nice deep breath and exhale. And take another deep breath. Prepare to hum with it. So just go hum. And as you inhale again, imagine all the energy that you're feeling underneath your legs, sort of cradling you. Imagine as you inhale, it comes up into you, up into your body. Your whole, and all the energy is centered around your heart, and your heart is just churning with energy, churning with connectivity, and churning with the knowledge that you're connected. And smile. feel the peace. Let that peace saturate you. Let it saturate every fiber of your being. Let it saturate all your cells. Let it saturate the frequency that you are. Take a nice deep breath and hum with it. Every time you inhale, that energy comes into you. And every time you exhale, imagine all that negative energy, all that tension, all that frustration, all that emotional stress, all that psychological stress, all that physical stress. Every time you exhale, imagine that pushing out of you into the earth. So you might want to pick a spot. You know, it might be between your shoulders, it might be between your neck, your lower back, in your hand. Pick a spot that is causing you pain, that is causing you suffering, and exhale the pain out of your body into the earth. Inhale, focus on that spot, and exhale. Feel the energy leave it and go down into the earth. And 2 more times. Inhale, focus on that spot, exhale. And inhale, and focus on that spot, and exhale all of it out. And as you inhale, inhale all that light and that universal hum into that spot of trouble, and feel the pain melt away. Beautiful. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Now take a nice deep breath and exhale. And when you're ready, open your eyes very slowly. Take your time. Come back to us. I know you don't want to leave the forest. That's okay. You can always go back to the forest whenever you want. Lovely. Absolutely wonderful. Brilliant. Okay. So now that we're back in the normal world, you know, I know it's not the best place because the forest is so wonderful. So you can go back to that exercise whenever you choose. Don't forget this for anyone who takes the calligraphy meditation class. Obviously, you get the live. We will send you the link to the recording so you have it for life. If you join the community, you will have access to all of the calligraphy meditation classes that we've done. So that all the meditations are different. So this meditation I came up with today, I was just sort of really grappling with what's happening in the world today. And I felt we needed to connect a little bit further out. We needed to recognize that, you know, our planet is tiny. There shouldn't be this much trouble. We shouldn't have this much strife. So maybe connecting further out would help us to bring that sort of unity back in. The great thing about the classes is, you know, you are not alone. And it's a really important thing to remember. There are lots of people on the class, you know, calligraphers are very, very helpful. They're very supportive. Don't feel if you're running into a problem, you can very easily send a message to somebody and, you know, they will happily help you. All right, so let's pick up our pencils in our non-writing hand and let us remember that the non-writing hand is really important. And we're going to put the pencil in the writing hand with the non-writing hand. There we go. And you might find that what's happened is your position has changed. So as you can see, I'm sort of feeling my page is tilted a little bit. So I will change the position of the camera. Remember, change the position of the page, not cock your wrist. You really want to be relaxed. So what I want you to do now is I want you to be conscious of the calmness that you had in the forest. Really go back to it mentally, emotionally, energetically. Take a nice deep breath and exhale. So the great thing about this calligraphy meditation class is it teaches us about how meditation works in relation to our writing practice. So we know that in order to do a downstroke, which is an exhalation, we have to go from here to there. And we don't just put the pencil at that line, we actually start on the baseline and we inhale to make an upstroke and we exhale to make a downstroke. So technically what we're doing is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 downstrokes. But 5 downstrokes will give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 upstrokes. So remember, we have to inhale before we can exhale, and we have to stop whenever we change direction. So what this exercise does is it teaches you that writing is about breathing. All writing is rhythmic, and you will fail if you try to generate even spaces between the letters. But if you allow your breath to generate the space, you will find that it just comes so naturally. And the only way that works is if we're writing slowly. And by writing slowly, it allows the tool the time to produce the shape. So we're going to do this exercise. So remember, we are inhaling first, exhaling, inhaling, stop, exhale, stop, inhale, stop, exhale, stop. And I'm not going to move my hand around. I'm actually using a whole arm movement. So let's do that exercise together. Put the tool on the page, work out where you're going to sit, and inhale, and exhale. So why do we finish with an exhalation, with an inhalation? Because we've done an exhalation, so we have to inhale. So this becomes really apparent when you start using this particular practice in writing. So this teaches us quite a lot. So we're going to do 2 more of these. Mark off 3. Remember, the page can move, so you don't have to lean. Move the page closer to you. This exercise is probably one of the most important exercises you will learn, because it teaches us that all our letters are only really made up of one line. When we teach copperplate script, or any script for that matter, you think we teach you that the letter has two parts. This letter is really made up of one line. So notice we started at the cap height. Here we would go from the baseline, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. What this does is it shows us that the spacing of the shapes is entirely based on breath. So if you look at this again, you would get inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. And this tells us the line is made up of two parts. It's made up of a trace in the air and a mark on the page. Now we're going to apply the same technique of trace and mark to what we've just done. So we are going to trace the inhalation and mark the exhalation. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So the reason why we inhale on the upstroke is because the diagonal lines are longer, and it takes longer for our breaths, our bodies to push up and out against itself. And of course, the exhalations are shorter because the body collapses in on itself much more readily. And by following this pattern of inhalation and exhalation, of inspire and expire, we see that the lines naturally space themselves. So it's a really, really important practice. So let's do two more groups of this. Lovely. So my breaths are getting bigger. So I'm getting more relaxed. I know that, they're not as shallow. So that's a really good exercise. Now, we're moving on to more complex exercises. What we'll notice with the complexity of the exercises is that we are becoming more aware of what the tool is capable of, and more importantly, what we are capable of. So let us move from inconsistent lines of deposition to consistent lines of deposition. Now, I've taught this class lots of times, and I came to realize that for me, I had to work out what the pencil could do. So we have a heavy stroke, a medium stroke, a light stroke, and a very light and also very thin stroke. So that tells me quite a lot. And I know for me, the light stroke is by far the best stroke for me to do. I'm barely touching the page, and it really helps because when you press hard, you increase the amount of friction between the page and the writing implement. Lots of people say, oh, I need to press hard so I could feel the page, but you don't need to press hard. If you have too much friction, it actually causes the tool to shake, and you have to press harder, you have to grip the tool tighter. So just try and work out which one of the lines you find better for your practice. So do a heavy stroke, a medium stroke, a light stroke, and a very light stroke, and see how they feel. So this is something you'll have to work out for yourself. So I'm going to do 3 groups of light strokes while you figure that out. Lovely. So you should have figured out by now which one of the strokes feel and work best for you. I always number my sheets in the top. Now, it's important that you understand this distinction between the light and the heavy strokes, because as we move into the practice, you're going to need a little bit more clarity in application of pressure and creating depth with the tool. So being able to vary the amount of being able to vary the amount of pressure on the tool is really important. So we are going to move away from, we're still doing vertical lines, but we're going to go to 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 spaces is 3 centimeters or 30 millimeters or 1¼ inches. So this means we have, by now we should be nice and relaxed and our breaths should be a lot slower, which means we could do a much longer downstroke, which obviously means a much longer upstroke. So remember to ghost the stroke first so you can map your breath. Inhale, exhale. So I feel this is a little bit far for me. So we're going to do 2 more groups of this. Lovely. So those lines really sort of force you to think and to be present with the breathing and the mechanism behind the breathing. Otherwise, you just sort of collapse. Whew, wow. So that's quite a big line to cope with. So we're going to do 3 more of these lines, 3 more groups of these long lines across 5 lines. So skip 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you found that you struggled with these, I'd maybe make a note of it so that you know that you're struggling with those lines when you're going back to the exercises. Those of you who are rushing the stroke, I want you to be really conscious of the breath. So we're going to ghost the stroke. Try and work out how long it's actually going to take you to do it and try and distribute the breath a little bit more evenly. Inhale, exhale, inhale, and make the stroke. Ah, lovely. A little bit of a distraction, a little mental distraction. And I immediately sort of felt it going off. But I made a decision that I wanted to actually continue the stroke. So remember, when you're practicing calligraphy, when I teach students practicing calligraphy, if you start making a mistake, invariably you know it's a mistake. Never ever continue with that line. This is a different kind of practice. I felt that I wanted to finish the line and I wanted to acknowledge the fact that I'd made a mistake. And I wanted to really acknowledge to myself that I could correct that mistake. So I made the line much more vertical here. And as I went along, I could hear my brain staggering the pattern, and I started to see, oh, look, you could make a square here. So my brain sort of went off on a tangent there. So now from this pattern, we always go back to the 3. So we're going across the 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to vary the pattern. Each time we vary the pattern, we're going to go back to those 3 lines to help us. So remember to mark off so that your brain knows what you're doing. Inhale, exhale, inhale, and exhale. So we're going to go back to 5, but we're going to vary the heights. So we're stepping down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, ghost. Exhale, ghost. Inhale, ghost. And exhale. To 4. To 3. 2 to 1. You might find this is a little bit closer than that. And we're going to do it again. So we're going to do 3 more of these groups. Mark off 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mark off 5. So as you can see, my breathing is really starting to settle down. And that means that this is a long stroke. So if we do the trace and the mark, what we get is this. Oh. And as you can see, the distances start to change. Because of course, the inhalation is shorter. This is a really great exercise to test how you're managing your breath. Of course, if we do all 5 lines, they should be equidistant, but if we do them at different heights, they should not be equidistant. So let's do that exercise, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember the trace and the mark. All right. Like musical intervals. Now we start to understand why the breath is so important. So we're going back to 3. Right. So these exercises are a little bit more difficult. And this is where we have to breathe through the stroke. So we're going to exhale sharply and then exhale slower and softer, and then exhale sharply. So it's a bit of a punctuated breath. So we're going to go. So we're going to inhale and now, the point of this is to control, to learn and improve your control over the tool. It's not just about going, it's also knowing what you're trying to do. So the top 6th and the bottom 6th, that's where you want to keep those punctuated breaths. Those of you who've done the copper plate script catch-up classes, you could even aim at 9ths if you wanted to, so that you can really start to work on the structure of your writing system. So the center should really be quite thin. And what you'll see me getting to is this. And what I'm actually doing is I'm doing this. Just going to get to the mic. I'm doing this. I'm going. So it's a really, really little breath. Instead of going, I'm going. So it's entirely up to you how much air you're going to expel on this. Come on. So I want to keep mine much shorter, much lighter, much thinner, much narrower. Let's inhale, exhale, inhale, and funny how getting up from the desk has completely ruined my consistency of line. So we're going to do 3 groups of these 5 lines. just going to squeeze a fourth screw in. Believe it or not, this is one of the best exercises for training you to do copper plate script. Okay, so my pencil needs a little bit of sharpening, so just double check to see that, always keep an eye on the point of the pencil. So what I normally do is I sharpen the pencil to a nice crisp point. Then up here, so you can see how sharp that point is, I press just to snap the edge off. Three spaces. Okay, so this exercise is the opposite of the previous exercise. So we're just going to do a constant width stroke, just to sort of get us back to our starting point. And we're going to do another variable pressure stroke, but it's the opposite of this. So we are going to start lightly and finish lightly. Now, it's the same sort of principle. So we have a sixth at the bottom and a sixth at the top. The middle 2/3 is where that weight is, and the middle third is where most of the heaviest parts of the stroke. So you can map it out if you like to. And when you're ready, we'll do 3 of these. So let's go down a line. 2. So let's do 4 of these, sorry. So the breath for this is just be conscious of, if you're starting to feel lightheaded, pace yourself a little bit more, take a break from the exercise. Don't forget, you have these videos for life. You always come back and practice with them to increase your breath strength. And I like to keep the weight there. Lovely. Okay. So let's go back to our triple line height and let's clear our minds using the standard exercise. We're going to do 3 of these, 3 groups of 5. So I've just done this last 4th group because I wanted to sort of point something out to you. I think you need to sort of figure out what you're aiming, how you're aiming to write these lines. So remember, we're not drawing these lines, we're writing them. There's a huge difference between how we hold a tool for writing and how we hold that tool for drawing. There are different neurons firing for drawing versus writing. So be conscious that you're writing. Now, when you're drawing, they always tell you if you're drawing a straight line, don't look at the tool, look at where you're going to. So you go, you're not looking at this, you're actually looking at this point. Put the tool down, you look to this point, and you aim for the point. And the tool will end up at that point. This exercise is different because with this drawing exercise, you are ahead of yourself. With the writing exercise, you are looking at the point of the tool. What this does is it allows you to plot marker points. So usually, you know, when I teach, I always tell students this, you know, there's 4 aspects to writing. So I've come up with this system of, which I call my 4-fold symmetry approach. We have angular confinement, elliptical confinement, variable velocity, continuous movement, and variable velocity. And continuous movement is that, you know, what I showed you earlier on about the mark and the trace. And variable velocity tells us that different parts of the line, a different part of the line is done at a different speed to the rest of the line. So different parts of the lines are written at different speeds. So the beginning is normally the slowest and the end is normally the slowest. The middle is a little bit faster, but when you get, so we're looking at sixths, when you get to this third, to this 2/3 bit of the line, which is there to there, you're generally thinking, oh, I could speed up. But when you get to here, you should be thinking, you're going to get to that 6th, which means you need to be slow. So you have to prepare to slow down from here so that you're actually slow enough for this bit. So looking at the point of the tool as it's making the mark is really important, because it also means that this is a meditative practice, that you're also being conscious and present with the tool. You are there with the tool where it is on the page. With most calligraphy, you're thinking ahead. So this exercise, you really have to focus on the writing of the line, rather than, in calligraphy, we generally focus on the writing of the word. So now we're going to compound this exercise of variable pressure with 3 variants. So we're pressing, pressing, pressing. So we have pressure, no pressure, pressure, no pressure, and pressure at the end. Of course, that has to match up the breath. So we go right. So let's do 3 groups of this. Oh, lovely. Okay, so that brings us to the next exercise, which is a set of variable groups. So we're going to do these 3 groups that we've done already. Mark off, mark off. So remember, we're going to cleanse our palette lightly. So we're going to go lightly, then pressure, release, pressure, then no pressure, 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 and then the punctuated one. Hairline, press, release, Oh, wow. Lovely. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, I mean, you probably haven't been able to see, but even with the lining up of the page, I've made sure that all the pages are lined up. And I'm being really, really conscious of the practice. The accuracy is not only in the writing of the lines, but the way in which you put the tools and the materials together. Remember, it's not about you writing the lines. It's not about you imposing your will on the tools and materials. It's about you being part of the writing. And that means all the tools and materials, including yourself, because you are one of the materials, you all need to work together peacefully and calmly. So now we're going to do a row of 3 lines, 3 height spaces, lightly, because the next exercise is a little bit more difficult. So just sort of breathe nicely and smoothly. We're doing 3 groups of this. Lovely. So now mark off 5 spaces. And we're going to do a combination of the variable pressure exercises at 5. So we're going to do 5. We're going to do 3 groups of 5 lightly like this, just to sort of prepare ourselves for the height of the line. And then we're going to do the variable pressure strokes. So let's do 3 groups of 5. And ghost. All right. Now, mark of 3, mark of 5. Let's do the variable stroke. So we're going light, pressure, no pressure. I'll do one row for you, one group for you. So we have light, pressure, no pressure, 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 pressure, no pressure. Okay. So we're going to repeat this, but we're going to repeat it at 4. And we're going to repeat it at 3. And now we're going to repeat it at 2, which is going to be very difficult. So you might find your fingers want to kick in here. And we have one more set of exercises to do. And that is variable height at variable pressure. Mark off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, hairline. And we'll finish off with 3 sets of light lines across 3 spaces. Lovely. So let's take the pencil out with the non-writing hand, put it down. Oh. Okay, so for those of you joining us for the first time, one of the things we discuss is how to apply this to your writing. So of course, if you are writing something like textualis, it's the same sort of breathing pattern. So exhale, inhale, exhale. It's really nice and slow and rhythmic. And of course, if you're going to do copperplate script, I'm going to use a brush for this. Inhale. So you really get a sense of the sort of movement and rhythm and the breathing. And the breathing is what generates the spacing. Now, we had a flourishing class on Sunday, so we can look at some aspects of flourishing here so you can see how it works. So you really get a sense that even, everything we do with writing is really centered. Everything we do with writing is really centered around that breath. Now, I know that for a lot of you, this might be a little bit much because you're not accustomed to having such long breaths of air to work with, because admittedly, most of you tend to hold your breath when you're writing. So it takes a little bit of time to sort of get to the point where you're actually able to write this slowly, and breathing exercises really do help as well. I must confess that I am struggling a little bit because, I'm still sort of coping with my lung capacity after what happened in January. So we're going to take a break for 10 minutes and we will come back and field any questions that you have. Thank you very much. Let's have a look at this. Okay. So Diane asks about inhalation. So breathing is always from the diaphragm. Do not use your chest to breathe because it's too variable and there's too much upward and downward movement, which means that the tool will be moving around quite a lot. So it's always from the diaphragm. Obviously, once the diaphragm pushes up, you'll find that the chest expands, and it moves a little bit further away. So it's, I find with teaching people breath control, it's always about, lying on your bed and resting your hand on your diaphragm and just breathing and just feeling it move up and down. Like, when you watch a baby breathe, they're very, very rhythmic in this breathing process. It's only when we become adults and you go to the doctor and they say, inhale, and you go, rather than inhaling from your diaphragm. So it's that diaphragmatic breathing is what generates the spacing. When you are unconscious of the breathing, you'll find that the diaphragm is what kicks in and it does the breathing for you. So this is trying to make you consciously unconscious of your breathing, of how unconscious your breathing is, and consequently how rhythmic it is. So can you exhale through your mouth and nose, or just your nose? Okay, so that's something you're going to have to work out on your own. I generally inhale through my nostrils and exhale through my mouth, but that's just me. I find if you're doing both, the breath sort of gets away too quickly, and it doesn't give you enough of a rhythm. My hands don't sweat, so I don't use additional, I don't use gloves or anything, because I like to feel my hands with the tool and the paper. If I feel a little bit sticky, because sometimes it does get a little hot in the studio, I'll put a piece of paper underneath my hand. I see lots of people using these black gloves with bits cut out of them, or they make a glove out of that. The problem with that kind of thing is that they can cause you to slip across the surface a little bit more. But, I like I said, I don't have sweaty hands, so that's not really a problem for me. I don't also have oily hands. So again, I'm giving you what I know from my own practice. I can't really speak about issues that I don't really experience because I don't know enough about them. So you really will have to work that kind of thing out on your own, unfortunately. So Marilyn says, today I've been forgetting to do the ghost in breath before starting the straight lines. Okay, so that shows that you're a little bit tense. I've had some physical pain today. So if you're going to write about physical pain, you need to tell us what it is. I mean, just saying it's physical pain, I have no idea what you're talking about. Is it back problems? Is it hand problems? Is it neck problems? Is it related to the writing? In the calligraphy community, I did a post about pain. If you are in pain, what is it? So go to the community and sort of type in, follow what I've put in, because, I've also put about my own pain in my hands, my back, and my neck, and that kind of thing, and what I do to alleviate that kind of pain. So remember, specifics, We need specifics. Generalizations don't help us help you. So Katrin says, this time I could concentrate better on the 3 Ps, but there is still too much tension. Yeah. So, you know, like I said, at the beginning of this, it's not magic. It takes a long time. You know, you're being introduced to something that you're not accustomed to having to be conscious of. Lots of people hold their breath when they're writing, and that's a problem because you're holding your breath. And so you're really getting more and more tense because you're running out of air. So you're aiming to get to the end of the word quicker rather than having that rhythmic breathing. So getting you to unlearn these bad habits is really quite difficult because you invariably fall back into them. And it takes a long time for you to get to the point where you're really conscious of them. And you then become so conscious of them that they become unconscious actions. So it's really important that, you know, you stick with the practice and you stick with the different aspects of the practice. You might want to write down what you're focusing on in this particular session. Are you going to focus on your posture? Are you going to focus on your placement? Are you going to focus on your position? Are you going to focus on the tool hold? Are you going to focus on your muscular movement? Because of course, you're using your arm to create these strokes. You're not using your fingers. And this is one of the reasons I do the line at 5, at 30 mil. That's a massive line. And by using little punctuations, you have to use a little bit of wrist and finger movement with whole arm movement. So it's really quite intense when you're allowing all these muscles to interact. But if you think about what happened before, you were not aware of any of this. And if you were aware of it, it was only for one line, rather than being aware of it for all the lines all the time. So it takes some time. With the tension, you know, I think it's, you know, just work on the breathing a little bit better. Just try and do the breathing on your own. You know, I know, Katrin, that you've also written about the fact that your legs shake a little bit, and that this is also helping you to relax that, and they're not shaking as much. So, you know, I was thinking about this, and I was wondering about if it's something to do with the way that you're sitting on the chair as well. You know, how much blood is going to your legs? You know, what kind of chair do you have? So there's all of that stuff, which I'm sure you've sort of thought about as well. So Florian asks about its application, this breathing application to drawing, painting. I've not tried it with other crafts. Obviously, you know, my focus is calligraphy. I have tried it with sign painting, but the problem with things like sign painting is, you know, the shapes are much bigger. So, you know, you're really having to expand your breath for this kind of thing. With regards to things like ceramics, I'm sure that the rhythmic breathing can help you with, you know, sort of throwing pots and being really conscious of how you shape them. And, you know, the thing about clay is you can exhale into the clay and you're really sort of lending your breath to the movement. So I'm sure that it can be applied to other fields. You know, if you think of drawing, you know, you can draw lines that are very similar to writing. But, you know, if you're sketching the line in, you know, you're not going to go, you might do, but of course, you know, you might also end up hyperventilating and fainting. So it would be interesting to see how it would be applied and what the kind of practice would be. So Diane says this is a 3rd class, brilliant. Such an improvement in all aspects: breath control, tool control, posture awareness. And I love the guided meditation. For me, the sky is iridescent purple with stars. It's good, it's good. So you know, it's like I said at the beginning of the calligraphy meditation classes, and it's like we have in the description. It's like going to yoga. The more times you go to the yoga class, the better you get. You have more instruction, you see the instruction deeper and differently every time you come back to it. There's a better practice, there's a better sense of how you're moving through the exercises. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to keep the price as low as we could keep it, so that it would allow people this safe space to come to practice in, to work within, to sort of build their structures in, and to get better in. And of course, the better you get, the more aware you are of the mistakes. So technically, the better you get, the worse you get, because you're really sort of seeing, your mistakes for what they are, because you're more aware of them. So, you know, the continuous practice is really, really important. It really does help you. I hope that you're practicing as well at home, rather than just leaving it for, you know, for the monthly sessions. And we're opening up the Disciple Media. We have a meeting with them tomorrow to talk about new bits of technology they're adding to the platform, so that you know, we can sort of really help you guys sort of work within the community. So arm movement is not easy to control. So I hope you've studied along with the PAScribe tool hold, Iris, because my tool hold and my muscular movement and whole arm movement, they're very different techniques to the historical hold and the historical arm movement and muscular movement. And I found that people who've studied with my hold and my techniques, they find it a lot easier to have this kind of control. The historical hold is very difficult, especially if you're doing something like Spencerian script. You have to really change your hold. My hold, you do have to change your hold, but it gives you a lot more dexterity. It gives you a lot more scope and area of mobility to play with. And my muscular movement and whole arm movement, they are not as complicated as the historical ones, because they're based around our pen hold, a triangular pen hold. And so you might find working with those a little bit easier. We are planning to do some prerequisite catch-up classes where we're going to focus on that specific prerequisite and sort of have people talk about it. And it'll be more of it'll be something like this, but I think it'll be more of a question and answer session with people's cameras open and their mics open. So I will do a demonstration about what it is, how I see it working, why I came up with it, and then run through some of the issues. We'll once we're ready to do this, we'll send out an email to everybody who's purchased the prerequisites and get questions in, so that we have stuff to answer first. And then we'll go into asking people specific questions if they're still struggling in that class. We're still trying to work out the order of that, whether or not we do one catch-up session as a sort of focus session, going through it, me physically going through it in front of you so you can see what I'm doing. And the posture is a little bit tricky because we'll need quite a few cameras. So we're still trying to work that out. And then you go away and you practice with what you've learned. And then we come back maybe in a week or 2 weeks, so that you've had a chance to sort of, or maybe in a month, so that, we can put up the additional video into that particular prerequisite. You can look at it, you can study with it, because you would have worked along with it. And then we then have another catch-up class, so that we can sort of air some questions. And so you're not sort of, struggling along on your own, you're actually getting some guidance. And then, of course, that kind of information, you can always have more access to information in the community, which is something we're really keen to add into there. So that's great. So Katrin says that she's applied it to drawing and painting. So that it would be great to hear Katrin's response to that. So maybe after I answer the questions, if Katrin can sort of have a little chat with us about how she sees that working and how she's implemented it. So Marilyn, at the onset of discomfort, I put the pencil down, did a posture and grip check. That's very good, Dan. That's really good. That you have to run through the checklist. Are you in the right position? Is the page in the right position? Are you ready to write? Because you mightn't actually be ready to write, and I keep saying this. And if you're not ready to write, don't write. You should be able to sense if your body is ready to do this. If not, then just wait, follow along, just, follow along what I'm doing. And you'll eventually feel it yourself. You'll feel yourself relaxed enough. I find with a lot of the students who've taken the class before that, you should have prepared yourself. By the time I'm ready to do the first few exercises before the guided meditation, you should have relaxed yourself enough to do those exercises. So, remember the first few exercises of the class is really for people who haven't done the class before, for them to just do some writing and then start to recognize that the writing is different and they need to look at different aspects of the writing. Then we do the guided meditation and then they're really relaxed. And then we bring the breath into it. But you shouldn't need that. You should be able to just sit there and jump into it. Of course, the stress of the day, the stress of the week, the problems that we're having, all of these issues that we're coping with, it means that when we start, we're just starting like everybody else. Technically, you're sort of starting from scratch every time you do the class. Then you do the guided meditation and you go, oh, okay, yes, now I sort of know I sort of know what I need to remember. So I think it's really important that we're conscious of that. Conscious of running through that checklist first. So Florence says, I see this related to embodiment. Even cooking, I could do this with. I mean, I cook a lot. I love cooking. Cooking for me is very relaxing. It's very calming. If I get really, really angry about something, it's the one thing that can really, really calm me down. So I'm a little bit wary of trying to make the breathing as part of a cooking strategy, but definitely with embodiment, definitely, you can find principles of embodiment in anything you do. That level of awareness, that level of connectivity, that level of understanding the whole and knowing that you're part of it. So just, it's interesting to see how how people are starting to experience the breathing. So Katrin says, my hand is still too often in an angle instead of a line with the elbow. So remember with the tool hold, it's about putting your hand down, and then once your hand is down, it will relax. Iris, we will send you the links once they're up. The reason why that you haven't received the links is because they're not up yet. We did say that we were having some technical issues last week. I spoke about this in all the classes. So once they're up, you will get the link. Please be patient. Calligraphy your life. Sometimes if the line is too long, I get stuck and need to move my arm or elbow. How to sync the breath? How to sync the breath to that move? I don't really understand the end of this. Sometimes if the line is too long, I get stuck and need to move my arm or elbow. Are you getting stuck on the table? Because if you're getting stuck on the table, that means that there's not enough mobility in the shoulder. And the only reason that there's not enough mobility in the shoulder is because the shoulder isn't relaxed. So this is why the ghosting process is so important. If you ghost the line, immediately it tells you how much space you have to play with. If you don't ghost the line and you get stuck, then you're not relaxed enough to do that line. And there's a lot of issues around getting stuck. In a flourish, I always tell people when you're doing a flourish, you're doing a flourish and the nib sticks. If the nib sticks, what do? You inhale, which means you go back on the flourish. So you inhale, you go, and then you go. Or I found with lettering, if you're doing calligraphy and you get stuck in a letter, doing a downstroke, and you're stuck, just wait and inhale. And as you inhale, the body will move up and it will come off the page just a little bit. And as you exhale, it will move down again. So moving from a stuck position, you know, the problem is when you're stuck, you're pushing, right? And you're stuck and you're pushing more when all you have to do is actually relax. Just sit back from it and it'll happen. But you have to give it space to happen. So, you know, you just have to be, you know, I'm talking about this and I can hear, obviously I've never experienced this, but, you know, I can hear in a maternity ward, they're telling a woman to push, push, push. But they also tell her to not push at a point that she really wants to push. So, you know, it's like having a baby. You have to be really aware of what is happening with that line. If you are stuck in a position because you've run out of space, or maybe the tool has hit a patch on the page that will not let the tool move beyond that, then all you have to do is inhale and exhale, and the breath will allow it to move through. So, you know, this technique is really great for lots of aspects of writing. But I'm a little bit conscious of this thing, Florin, about the fact that you're getting stuck and you need to move your arm or your elbow. The other thing that this tells me is you're probably using your hand. Because you know when you're writing a big letter and you get stuck because you've run out of space, you have to lift the hand and then make the line again. Okay, I don't have that problem because my hold negates that problem from happening because my hold is higher up, so I have a huge area of mobility. When you're using your fingers, that's the length or duration of the line. If the stroke is that big, you have to do this, move the hand and then do it again, and then move it again, rather than doing it in one go, because there's not enough transition from the finger to the wrist to the muscular movement to the arm. So there might be something there that's happening that you're struggling with, that you need to work on. Back and injection. Okay, well, if you're having an injection, then you're definitely going to be in pain, right? So, you know, like I said, you might not be ready to do the writing. And if you're not ready to do the writing, because you might be in pain for some reason, it might be something that's ongoing. Don't force yourself, because you can only compound the situation. So Steve says that this is probably a second or third class. From the first experience and the one on Clubhouse, my hands are now sensitive with the weight of the phone. You become so much more sensitive to pressure and to, I mean, even touching paper. The exercises really change how you can see through the tip of the pencil. You know, if you close your eyes and you wait, it's like your eyes are on the end of the lead and you can see the line. Really, really amazing experience. There's a really great experience, a really great technique that I use for testing paper, which is I rub my hands together, I put them over my heart, I breathe a little bit, and then I put my hands over the sheet of paper. So the sheet of paper is just there, and I just breathe. And it's like I drop onto the surface of the paper. I can feel every little inconsistency on the page. And then I rest my hands on the page and I very lightly touch the page. And you become so sensitized So in craniosacral therapy, they use this thing called palpation, where they just touch you. It's so light, and you're taught that it's the lightest possible touch you can manage. And through the nerve endings in the fingers, you can, in your head, you can hear the fluids in the body moving. And you learn to work out which fluids sound like what. But invariably, you're so sensitive to it. As soon as you hear it, you know what it is. When you hear blood pumping in the veins, it's like, it's that loud. When you become really sensitive to it, and it's so our fingers are hugely sensitive. The pencil exercises really remind us to be kind to our hand, and that's why you have to be relaxed. That's why I always say to you, the page can move. Don't cock your wrist. It's all about you being relaxed. It's all about you not putting yourself in a situation that will generate pain or that will generate an injury. And if you have an injury, it's about trying to release that injury. So, I always talk about my hand. I nearly lost my thumb because of repetitive strain. And I developed my hold because I was looking for a way to hold the tool where when I held the tool, there was not even a twinge of pain. So it's really important that you're conscious of not suffering. And that's why, being conscious of your posture, the placement of the page, the position of the hand is so important, because you can move the page, but you see so many people writing and they cock their wrists back like that, and it's not good. It's not good at all to do that. Oh, hi, Winnie. So Winnie's a newbie. Yay, woohoo. I'm glad you enjoyed the class. Do you have any, all my classes, what we do is, just work through the prerequisites first, make a decision on the script you want to do, and then just, I would suggest you probably start with the italic class. So the italic class should be up soon. We had some technical issues with it because Telmo's computer died. And so we had to recover files, and then Gingy recorded some stuff and I recorded some stuff. We had to all put it into Dropbox and try and figure out what the files were. So I then had to look through them. So it's taking a little while to get them up. They're almost there. I just have to go in and look at them again. Telmo's uploaded all of them. And so we just need to I just need to cycle through that and see what's there and sort out the order. So so the italic class is probably the best class for you if you're just starting off. It'll give you a really amazing introduction into calligraphy. And then if you're interested in broad edge work, then I would suggest you move to the textualis class. And if you are really, really interested in learning pointed pen work, then there's tons of copperplate stuff up. So do the lectures first, then the workshop, and then the catch-up classes. So Axel says, for painting, I know my rhythm of breath, but I've never linked it to calligraphy before. Katrin talked about it in another class. Okay. So Emma says, so glad I took my tutor's suggestion to come. Oh, thank you. oh, Fiona, I love Fiona. Oh, she's so great. So this is the last class before we run the 2-day workshop. So the 2-day workshop is, I don't have it in front of me. It's on 2 Sundays. Just get it up on my phone. This is the wrong pair of glasses for my phone. I used to see my mother, she'd do this, when she's reading something. And now I do it, and it's just, right. So the calligraphy and meditation workshop is on the 6th and the 13th of June. So in order to do the calligraphy and meditation workshop on the 6th and the 13th, it's a 2-day class. you had to have done one of the calligraphy meditation classes and obviously practice with them, because I am not going over that on the 6th and the 13th. I'm taking what we've learned and we're running with it. So there's a lot to do on those 2 days. Those 2 days, all the descriptions are there. You can read through what they are. Those 2 days are basically going to look at some more pencil line practice, more complex line work, more complex breath work, and how we take that over into actually doing calligraphy with this breathing technique. So we're going to look at pointed pen work and brush pen work. So spongy tip brushes rather than filament brushes. Things like, Fudenosuke or the Pentel Touch or Kurotake brushables. And so I'm going to show you how I use my breathing technique to do this kind of writing. Then we'll look at copperplate script and how copperplate script works with this particular technique. The aim is to then run some more calligraphy and meditation classes, and then move from pointed pen work to broad pen work. So we can look at working with markers like SIG markers, and then look at writing with broad edge nibs and how the rhythm of the meditation that the breathing practices that I use for my writing, how that engenders and structures my writing and the spacing and everything. And of course, the classes will be up on Teachable so that you can pick them up later. If you didn't do the catch-up class, if you didn't do the calligraphy and meditation weekend and you really wanted to work on your writing systems, then that's where you would sort of pick that up. So yeah. I've done multiple viewings of the prereqs, binging Teachable, not Netflix or Prime. That's brilliant. I noticed that I was picking my hand to press down on the heavier marks. I noticed that I was picking my hand to press down on the heavy marks. I wonder if you're saying picking up my hand to press down on the heavier marks. Yeah, so Marilyn, I always say, I can only give you what I have. It really is down to you to really focus on what's happening, what's actually going on. Because, I'm not there with you. You're there with you. And that's why having a separate pen or a pencil, so I have a really fine pen, as you probably saw, I make lots of notes. And when I'm writing, I make notes. Oh, what just happened here? What just happened there? And I sort of think, what happened? Oh, maybe, I'm very conscious of how I'm sitting. Where's my leg? What's happening underneath my thigh? Because, my piano stool is not the most comfortable thing, so it really keeps me upright. Is the piano stool hurting underneath my thigh? So I move the stool back a little bit and I move to the front of the chair. So things that I've covered in the posture placement position videos, in my basic prerequisite videos, I still have to go through those. I go through those in my head all the time. Since I had COVID, I find that I'm getting better at sitting upright. But for the first month, I was like this. I physically couldn't sit upright. So, you talked about pain in your back and an injection. You have to be aware of your limitations. And I'm slowly getting better, but I'm also still aware that my breathing is still problematic. So when I did those long exercises, I really struggled on those big 30 mil exercises across 5 spaces. At the end of that, I was just like, so, I started to breathe much deeper and much more. I was much more conscious of my breath. So, I'm being aware of all of this. You have to be aware of what you're doing. You have to make notes, because it's only in those notes do you start to see patterns. Oh, this is going on. Oh, you know, one of the things that I used to do when I wrote, when we addressed envelopes, was I would start off, and you know, we would have big jobs where we were addressing like 4,000 or 5,000 envelopes in a week. And I would split the list into three. So, you know, Alice would do a third, Eva would do a third. Invariably, I did a half and they did quarters because I wrote so much faster than them. But I would write the date and the time I started. And I would make notes at which point I was starting to make more mistakes, or which point I was more tired, when I would take breaks. So at the end of it, I would do this sort of grid sheet. Margot, our studio manager, she would have, excuse me, she would have done the proofreading and worked out who made the mistakes. And I could see on my sheet where the mistakes were made and where most of the mistakes were made, or what the mistakes were, because we had a sheet that told us what the mistake was. Was it a spelling error? Or was it a smudge? Or was it, you know, something else? And so those things helped us. Well, I mean, I know for the rest of the team, it didn't really, you know, for them, they didn't really think about it the way I was thinking about it. But for me, it really helped me to work out when I would get tired. So I knew that I needed better breaks after 45 minutes. I needed to get up, go for a walk, have some water, just walk around the studio, stretch a little bit, and then sit down and do some deep breathing, and then start back the writing. And you might find that, you know, if you are suffering with pain, that you need shorter breaks. You need shorter periods of writing rather than a sort of protracted sort of 2-hour practice. Oh, that's great, Rachel. That's great that you were able to use this with your intuitive painting exercises. That's brilliant. I'd love to hear from you and Axel and Katrin about your practices and how you've gotten the breathing into your practices. That's great, Axel. I know that I don't know if you heard what I was saying to Des and to Ruby about the technology. You know, remember the first class we did at the beginning of the year, we had a technological problem. The computer just stopped working. And I was like, what? But I was so weak that I was too weak to get angry. And I just thought, oh, you just need to accept it. The universe is trying to teach you a lesson. And that was a really interesting lesson because I had all of you to deal with. And you were all stuck in the forest, wandering around in the mist. And I had to find a way to get back there, to get you relaxed again, to get the process working. So, you know, it's sometimes when we run into issues with technology, I find with technology in particular, I don't have this problem with, you know, if I run into a problem with ink on a piece of paper, it never bothers me. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just get a new piece of paper. I'll do this, I'll do that. But with technology, I don't know if it's electromagnetic smog. It just really gets to you and you're just like, and really you just want to go, okay, fine. I'll find a way around this. And if I can't find a way around it, then I can't. I won't let it get to me. So it's you know, I'm glad that the meditation helped to relax your mind. Let's hope that it helps you to relax your back as well. What is the purpose of taking the pencil from the writing hand and vice versa? Good question. So Emma, it's really important that the other hand is doing something. Because if the other hand isn't part of the process, then it's not a holistic process. And that's, you know, sometimes when our hand's in a comfortable position, if you go to pick up the pen with the hand that's doing the writing, it comes out of that comfortable position. And I've seen students do this in classes. You know, I've had to tell students, use the non-writing hand to hold the page in place, because they'll have the non-writing hand dangling at the side of the chair. And I'm like, well, then, so it goes deeper, right? So when you're writing, you have to think about what's happening here. So you have both sides of, so the spine's here, the writing hand's here, so the non-writing hand should be here. So you have them spread evenly on either side of the spine. If they're not spread evenly, then it's not a holistic approach. And that's what calligraphy is supposed to be. It's supposed to bind us to the tools and materials. So if one arm is not being used, it's not part of the process. And that's why using that arm to pick up the pen and put it into the hand, it helps to complete the circle. Oh, Janet's here for the first time as well. Yay. Train the sensitivity of the touch through a sheet of paper. You know, I knew Freddie Marnes fairly well, who was an amazing copperplate calligrapher. And one day I went to see him and we were talking about copperplate script, and he said, you have to learn to write off the edge of the table. So he took a piece of card and he put the page off the edge of the table and he wrote here. And that was a level of sensitivity I'd never seen. And it really helped me to find a better way to write really delicate copperplate lines. And you know, that level of sensitivity is really, really quite important. So yes, I generally, when I teach calligraphy, I usually write with my left hand on the board, and I take the chalk and I write with my right hand, just to show left-handers that, you know, it's not that difficult. It's just a different perspective. And when I try to get right-handers to start on the right side of the page and move across the page, so that they have a sense of understanding of what's happening with their left-hand colleagues. But of course, you know, teaching left-hand, I love teaching left-handers. You know, I think it's such a great way to really test your mettle as a teacher and your skill as a teacher. Getting a left-hander to understand how to approach writing is really important. But, you know, my hold, when I teach my hold, you know, left-handers who have learned my hold, it's been amazing hearing left-handers talk about my hold and how it's dramatically changed the way they write, because they don't smudge the ink. It's a very, very different way to work because they're higher up. There's more dexterity for movement. It takes a little bit longer to learn it, but it's really quite amazing. So, you know, just try a non-right-handed approach and see how it works. And you'll find that it really tests you, and you will have to become so relaxed in order to not panic at it. Obviously, my writing with my left hand is not as good as my writing with my right hand. My copperplate script with my left hand is not good at all, and it could be better. But it's about understanding how it feels. What is the sense of the tool in the hand? How is How does it feel? What's happening mentally? What's happening physically? What's happening emotionally? Really, really quite fascinating. Yes, and you know, great idea. Writing in different languages. You know, writing in different languages gives you a very, very different approach mentally. You know, try writing in Egyptian. So Egyptian's a brilliant language to write. I mean, ancient Egyptian is a really amazing writing system to work with. So, all right, brilliant. So we have a little bit of time. Let me, we're not doing Vulkan. We are not doing a Vulkan class. I think I'd like to get Katrin and Axel and who else was talking about this? And Rachel to open their mics and their cameras, because I'd like to hear a little bit about their experiences of applying the technique, the breathing technique. So let's see if we can get, Telmo, can you open the mics and cameras, please?
Okay.
There we go.
So, so just very briefly, Katrin, what's your experience of the application of the, you know, how? So tell us which aspect of craftsmanship you're going to talk about and how you found the breathing technique helpful there.
Just to be sure, I've just prepared some examples. First, I show a little bit of watercolor with watercolor, and then something I've already talked about. This is from Richard's class, and the first thing is that I have to show it to you. It's the usage of very fine brushes, like number 1 or 0 something, which you need to draw very precise lines. For this, for example, you see it?
Yeah.
I've never, without the breathing, I wouldn't have done it so fine. So it's just I just put the brush down and very light touch, and I then with the breathing I've done the hairline with a brush. That's the first example.
And are you exhaling on the whole stroke, or are you inhaling and exhaling slowly? I do,
first I inhale, then I exhale, then I do a stop, inhale, and then I continue.
Okay.
And for this is Islamic pattern drawing.
Yeah.
For this I could use a ruler.
Mm-hmm.
But afterwards, when you use watercolor paper and you use brushes, you can't use a ruler.
Yeah.
So, and these lines are drawn with a very fine brush, with watercolor or with something, a brilliant color like Coliro.
Mm-hmm.
This is, and you have to do it very delicate to get this fine line.
And you're also having to keep the line the same thickness.
Yes, definitely. So, otherwise you would ruin the whole work. it would be hours lost.
Of course.
Because if you construct such things, it takes so much time.
Yes, it does.
Mm.
I know it only too well.
and then you have to be very, very, you have to pay attention really, and to have the time, give you the time to do the strokes. And this helps a lot, because with brushes you can't use rulers.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah, I mean, there is a ruler technique that you can use where you, we learned this technique in Reigate.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you hold the ruler here.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
you
it lifted.
You put the ferrule against the ruler.
Mm-hmm.
And you pull there.
Okay.
So it's not on the page. It's
mm-hmm.
really quite high up. And you could actually, so do you look, let me come out a little bit. You could, so I'm sort of creating a sort of jig with my hand. I'm going to use the crimp in the ferrule to act as a tram line.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really, really useful technique that we were taught when we were doing heraldic painting.
Sometimes I do it this way. I help with my other hands to also to avoid this trembling. And then another thing is to work with acrylics.
Oh,
it's a totally different thing. And to get such, this is a, well, you know, this is Naples, Vesuve. And to get such lines is, with acrylics, it's really, really, you have to concentrate. And I use the breathing here just to help me to get it really straight.
So you find that with really accurate work, mm-hmm. it really helps because of the breath and the pace, and it's much slower, and mm-hmm. you're really present with the line work. That's brilliant. Well done. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing mm-hmm. that. Rachel?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I just gotten a little bit into, just lately, learning a little bit more about intuitive painting, mostly to kind of process just emotions and, you know, all kinds of any stress or any emotions that come up in my life. So depending on how upset I am about something, depends on what kind of marks I'm making. But I find it really useful to use the breath when I'm doing mark making or intuitive painting. So this is an example of some mark making. So I first, use charcoal here, and I'm just breathing. I'm breathing and as I go up, and then making a mark down. And same with the strokes here of the brushes. This is some natural ink that I made. This is charcoal and copper and coffee.
Oh, wow.
And acorn, yeah. And here's another example. This is more mellow meditative exercises. And I really find that the meditation, like I'll do a warm up and then doing like a guided meditation before I do artwork or calligraphy is really, really helpful. So the forest meditation is fabulous. It's really, really helpful. Yeah, so this is another one. We're just doing those strokes with the paintbrush. I don't always lift off when I'm doing an upstroke, but just meditatively doing strokes. And then sometimes I'll do, you know, something a little bit more a little different, like with some drops instead of strokes. This is made from Oregon grape bark, pomegranate, green tea, and copper.
Wow,
and
that's
just
great.
yeah, and just being just meditative. And also I find working with the natural inks, it really kind of makes me think a little bit more about my tools, about the medium I'm using, kind of connecting with those medium, connecting with the earth.
And organic media really resonate because
yeah,
you're organic as well. And so when you're using organic materials, there's a synergy and a frequency that complements in the work. So when you do the drops, do you is it part of the process? Do you dip and do you drop? And how do you form that part of the sort of process as well? Is it all very rhythmic the way that you're?
It's all very rhythmic for me, really. And it's just very intuitive, as it's where I feel like dropping it, honestly. And then sometimes it has to do with, color and composition as well, and finding a balance in the whole artwork. But I'm usually either outside on my patio or listening to music that's meditative for me. And I just kind of make that part of the whole process. Like here's another one with the natural inks. And a lot of it, I guess, the breathing and making those different drops and brush strokes, and then watching the materials work together, and just like the chemical reactions of what's happening is really also very organic and very relaxing.
And so when you're watching them interplay with each other,
are
you also breathing sort of rhythmically and watching it? Is it all quite a sort of slow process that you're just sort of connected to?
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of a holistic experience.
That's great. That is wonderful. That is, thank you so much for sharing that. Axel?
Yeah.
So let's get your mic off, Axel.
It's not my day with technology, really. I love Catherine and Rachel's works. They are so beautiful. Mine is a bit different. My current whip is really whip. It's just this one. This is supposed to be the moon at some point, but I've stopped it because of calligraphy. I don't know why. Started to be obsessed with something. And I've got my pencil here, and there is a neighbor. They are trying to make friends so that I can paint and write. For the moment, it's not working properly. But this is the one I wanted to talk to you about.
Wow.
This is acrylic.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's very accurate for acrylic.
Yes. I've got a strange story with painting, and I'll talk after about it. This was done after chemo, and this was my second painting. First one is really dark and quite big, so I couldn't put it back. And this is where the rhythm came back. I had to do so many little strokes to get, and I wanted something really bright. And it's quite small because I wanted it to be small, because small is difficult. Painting big is really easy. Well, not really easy, but you can go and just correct. When you do little touches and you have to breathe and relax and get the music. And I don't know why you keep telling us that the music of the script was there somewhere. And I didn't lick it before Catherine told us about, my painting is so much better. And that clicked in my mind. I'm still searching for my music in copperplate, but I can see that it is somewhere. And I wanted to show you that one, which is quite different. It's not from me. It's my mother work. And it's quite a calligraphic part because this,
it's a very
this
calligraphic
trace,
line.
yes, is one brush trace.
Wow.
She learned Chinese calligraphy at one point, and she used it to do that one. So, oh, I'm going to cry. I didn't see there was something written on the back. Oh, sorry. She left notes on every painting sometimes that I got. So, ooh. And I've seen her doing that one, and it was just amazing. That's all that technique that went.
And you know, the structure of the Chinese writing really influenced the way that I developed my line and trace.
Yes.
So the breathing is so important, and you know, I think for so many people, you know, we separate writing in the East from writing in the West because, you know, our tools are so different, but all writing is the same. As long as you remember that the line is made up of a mark and a trace, you cycle through it and you breathe through it, and rhythmically it starts to structure the writing. So it's really important that we're aware of what's happening. So Florence says the hand becomes steadier when breathing. Yes, definitely. All right. Samar says, may the nib be with you. May the quill be with you. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much for staying on, for your time. Thank you very much, Katrin, Rachel, and Axel, for sharing this wonderful stuff with us, and for showing us that, you know, the breathing technique really does work in different fields. It is really an interdisciplinary activity that we can apply easily and beautifully. We just have to find that rhythm. Because, you know, for instance, if you're throwing a pot, you're starting off with a lump of clay. And so the breathing has to be much more labored at the beginning. And slowly it gets lighter and finer and more delicate. And, you know, if you're laying a large area of color, you know, it might just be a sort of, and then once it's dried, then you know, it's like the large line getting shorter, the intervals get smaller. So you're having to be a little bit more conscious of that. So thanks very much. Thanks for a great class. I look forward to seeing some of you next week at the small caps class, and I will look forward to seeing some of you at the calligraphy and meditation class. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Have a great day ahead, and we will send you the email as soon as the link is up.